Hello, thank you for watching our presentation. We're Team 56 presenting our escape room, Time to Escape. I'll start by introducing the team members. So from left to right, we have Richie Guide, Kalpak Dudella, Will Keynes, and myself, Nate Rollman. Before the content of the presentation, I'll just give you a brief overview. We're going to start with the room concept and audience, then we're going to move to puzzles, budget, we're going to give some information on the room strength, resources for implementation, and then we're going to finish off with conclusions and recommendations for implementing the escape room. Starting with the room concept, as you can see from our poster and our title, we have a time machine themed escape room. So to set the scenario, the participants will be trapped basically in a broken time machine where they need to complete the puzzles in a specific order to restore functionality to the time machine and finally escape back to the desired time. So for the target audience, we chose middle schoolers, and specifically it's middle schoolers on a field trip for this project. Our market research gave us likes and dislikes. Likes being that middle schoolers enjoy spending time with their friends. They enjoy relaxing and having fun in their free time from school, which is their main responsibility. So of course, dislikes would be the exact opposite of this. So things like attending school, doing homework, or listening to their parents. Additionally, our market research showed us that in general, middle schoolers enjoy a sense of freedom, which is something they don't have very much at this stage in their life because they can't drive. And this would lead their parents to driving them around and ultimately controlling all the aspects of their life, like who they hang out with, when they get to go places, and what activities they participate in. This brings us to the next slide of creating value. So to capture this sense of freedom, we would like to, we'd like to capture the sense of freedom in our time machine themed escape room. So to do this, we're going to have an immersive experience, which is achieved through striking visuals primarily and a cool set. So this is important because it'll make the time machine feel like an escape from the everyday, and it'll be like a cool adventure, which will bring that great sense of freedom that we're hoping to capture. Next, we'll also have the puzzles be age specific to middle schoolers. Middle schoolers aren't fully functioning adults, and they aren't little kids, so we can't make the puzzles too hard or too easy, so they still have a sense of accomplishment when they complete them, but they aren't just like rolling through all the puzzles. And then finally, we think the theme will be well received among middle schoolers because time travel and time machines are well represented in pop culture. Next, we'll be moving on to the presentation about the puzzles.
Thank you, Nate. So now we will actually get into the actual prototypes and puzzles that we had in the room. So we had a total of 6 puzzles, 5 physical prototypes, and 1 paper and pencil puzzle. So our first puzzle is lighthearted fun. It is the first one they will encounter entering the room. So with that, they will turn a dial and a joystick, and once they get to a particular position, it will give power to the room, which will then allow them to do the next puzzle of Simon Says. So in Simon Says, they will be given a sequence of flashing lights, and so they will need to put it back in the order which it was given to them. Once they do that a total of 3 times with 3 separate levels, that will then give them a password, which they will use for the next puzzle of Monitor the Situation. So they will enter the password using an IR remote. The Monitor the Situation will then display a series of questions on an LCD monitor, which they must answer correctly. Once they have answered all of the questions correctly, it will then give them a flashlight, which they will then use for the lightweight boxing puzzle. So they will shine the flashlight on a photoresistor, and while doing that, if they turn the joystick module 7 times, it will open the box, giving them access to the next 2 puzzles of Wheel to Code the Lock and Get in Shape. So for Get in Shape, it will give them a series of statements, and from those statements, they will then be able to compose a 4-thing long password of shapes. And so then they will then use that password in order to put into Wheel to Code the Lock to transform it from a password of shapes to a password of numbers. So essentially for Wheel to Code the Lock, the number of segments to draw the shapes on the outer ring will match the number of segments that it will take to draw each of the letters on the inner ring. And once they get into the proper position, each shape will correspond to exactly 1 number, which will give them the code to escape the room. So anyway, so that's all of our prototypes. So now we will see the prototyping budget of how much this actually costs. Here you can see a breakdown by item and by category. We had a total of 12 items. The bulk of the cost came from our 3D printing, which amounted to almost $24 out of our $27.50. So one of the greatest strengths of our room was actually the fact that we were able to keep our prototyping budget so low. Now Kalpak will give you some of the other strengths of our room.
Thank you, Richie. Moving on to the strengths of the room, this is our 3-dimensional room design here. We have, as you can see, this electrical cabinet here, which contains our first puzzle, the lighthearted fun puzzle. Then moving on, we have the Simon Says puzzle in the very center. After that, there's the monitoring the situation puzzle contained within this single room here, embedded within the ceiling. And afterward, we have the light-weighted boxing puzzle on this futuristic table-looking structure here. And that contains the final two puzzles, the cipher puzzle and our logic paper and pencil puzzle. Now, our main strength for this room design is the award-winning feature that we have the best usage of space. And as you can see here, it's pretty uniformly spaced, which allows the participants to freely move through the escape room to solve the puzzles more efficiently within the given time constraints of the escape room. We also structure it such that the lights are are spaced at greater distances to encourage teamwork amongst the participants, for each one to control the given lights, as we deduced that teamwork was an important skill amongst middle schoolers for them to learn. And as you can see here, we have our table and stool and our Simon Says puzzles contain a more futuristic curvature design to adhere more so to the time travel theme that we selected for this escape room. Moving on to the more practical implementation elements for this escape room, we have that central console also enables us to contain a lot of the wiring for the Simon Says puzzle, so that the wiring doesn't interfere with the solving of the puzzle on behalf of the participants. We also have similar elements for within the ceiling for the monitor the situation puzzle. We also have, for any additional furniture being installed within the room, we have it set up such that it fits well within a $100 budget range.
Thanks, Kalpak. So I'm going to be wrapping up this presentation. First, I'm going to be talking about the conclusions we made, the strengths of our room, and then where we want to improve. So to start off with the strengths, as Kalpak mentioned, we were really proud of how we used the space in the room. We try to incorporate all the required elements in the room in with at least one of the puzzles. Whether it's the control panel that we wrapped around the center pillar in the room for Simon Says, or the lighthearted fun we put in a closet and kind of made it an electrical closet to turn the power back on. Next up, for the things we're really proud of for this room, would be the thematic tie-ins. We felt like we really did a good job of tying in the theme of the room, which would be the time machine, into each of the puzzles, so none of them really stick out. They're not just kind of there for the puzzle's sake. We really thought they were a good fit for the theme. Next, we got the cost. Really big strength to cost. We came in at a fourth of the prototyping budget, or around that. And obviously the lower the cost, the higher the profit should be for this room, which it sounds good. And then lastly, when it comes to customizability, we're really talking about specifically the monitor the situation puzzle, but other ones could be modified too, depending on difficulty level. But in monitor the situation puzzle, we can change the questions that the puzzle asks in order to fit with whatever class is on the field trip. So if we have a history of the American Revolution class coming in, we can change those questions to be pertaining to that history class in particular. And then the one area we would really like to improve would be our decorative elements. We're really happy with how the puzzles look in the end and the kind of stuff surrounding the puzzles, but we would really want to add more just purely elements for decoration to make it feel more like a time machine. So our recommendations as we go into implementing would be to, as I mentioned before, add more decorative items just to make it really feel like a time machine. And then next up would be the integration of one of the prototypes better into the room. Specifically here, we're talking about our monitor the situation puzzle. Right now, it's kind of just in the room, and we would want to make some housing for it to really better integrate it into the room. And then lastly, the last bullet point kind of includes the two before it, is to make the room feel a lot more holistic. We want to make the room with the decorative elements and better integrating that puzzle to make it feel like one time machine room and not just like 5 different activities in the room. I think that wraps up our recommendations for the implementation. I would like to thank you all for coming.